Hello, 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 everyone. This is Tanika Steves, and I am the Mindful Coach. Welcome to Mind Your Business, Mindful Intentions, Nurture and Drive Your Business. And tonight, as always, I always have some weird stuff that happens, but nevertheless, I still have my guest that showed up, and now she is about to show out on her talents and information. So you want to join in and grab a seat, your popcorn, whatever you need, so you can get this great information. Here is Marie Sonneman. She is the founder of the Ordinary to Badass. She helps women gain confidence in life and with their finances. Marie paid off $106,000 of debt in just under 2 years. After paying off debt, Marie on to become a financial coach so she can help other women do the same thing. Now, I know it's a lot of us out there that are trying to understand how we can pay off debt, and we might not even have that much to pay off, but we might have more. But tonight you can get some nuggets and find out how to do it. Marie works in law enforcement. Once she became a police officer, she lost all of her confidence. Now, imagine that. Come on. You would think that's where the badass came in at, but we'll find out. When she paid off debt, she gained that confidence back. Through her journey, she learned that being a badass isn't about an object like a leather jacket, a motorcycle, or a cigarette, but it really comes from your mindset and confidence. Marie likes camping adventures and is excited to launch her first book about personal finances coming up in April. So please help me welcome Marie Sonneman. She is about to tell us who she is, what she does, and why she does it. So come on, Marie, let's hear it.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so just a little bit about my story is I got into law enforcement about 15 years ago and completely lost my confidence. I had always considered myself like a confident person until I got into law enforcement. And I think it was just because it was something completely new. And I was so busy comparing myself to all of my coworkers around me and my abilities to their abilities, and then just got in my head about the whole thing. So that was a struggle, and it was something I was trying to figure out and work through, but never really got a handle on it. And then miraculously enough, when the finance issue came up and I found out it was $106,000 in debt, it was like, like it was like a kick to the stomach or like a big blow. Because I was like, how in the world am I going to pay this off? I never grew up learning about finances, or it's not something that a lot of people talk about or a lot of families talk about. And so that's when I just committed, like, come do or die. I'm going to figure out how to create a budget, how to get out of debt. And that's exactly what I did. And I paid off the $106,000 in just under 2 years, which really gave me the confidence that I had been searching for and gave me a boost. So that's kind of when I came to realize, you know what? A badass isn't about having like a gun or a motorcycle. It's really about the confidence and the mindset and how huge and important that is. We often think of like females as badasses that are like tough or hardcore, but I don't think that's a badass at all. I think it's absolutely the mindset. And why I do what I do is because there are so many women out there who are struggling with the same thing that I have struggled with, confidence and finances, and they don't know the resources or what they can do to improve that or to improve their situation. So I really have a passion for that because I don't want people to struggle like I did.
Absolutely. Now, I want to just find out a little bit first of how you got from point A to point B. So I want to delve in a little bit to the police work, if you don't mind, because you would think that women in the that are police officers have this persona of being strong and tough, but
Absolutely.
you are telling a different story. So tell us a little bit. Can you walk us through what that looked like? Because were you the minority in your field? Were you the only woman? Did you have other women colleagues? And if you did, how was that like a match between you and the other women in the force?
I wasn't the only woman. There was other women, but definitely it's a predominantly male field. And so there was a lot of men. And it wasn't that I was getting grief from them. It was like myself in my own head wanting to do the same or better or comparing my abilities to their abilities. At the time, it was probably maybe 8 to 10% female. We have a rather large department, but yeah, probably 8 to 10% female all the way through. And so other women were cool. I didn't have any issues with other women. We all seemed to get along, and it wasn't catty. Like sometimes when you get women together, it can be catty. It wasn't like that at all. So it was really me feeling like a fraud, me feeling like an imposter. Other people being like, oh my gosh, you're so badass, or that's so cool, and like it just didn't feel like that inside. And so that was the big part of it, is just feeling like such a fake and struggling to find who I was and how I fit. And really, everybody has their different strengths, and you're bringing
Yeah.
your own strengths to the table, but I couldn't see through that because I was so busy comparing myself to everybody else.
Yeah. And it's tough sometimes when we are confident. We go from a level of being really confident, then getting into a field where we feel like we are being an imposter. And it's so funny because I've talked about that on the show before, the imposter syndrome. And I've even dealt with that myself, not thinking that I was good enough to do what I do. But when you are a professional in your field, when you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about, all you have to do is own that. And I think sometimes we get in our own head. And so let's talk about how your mindset transformed you within that position, and then lead up to how that encountered the debt part of it.
Um, I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but one thing comes to mind is from pretty early on, I started looking at myself in the mirror every day before I would go to work. And like I would like put my hands on my hip and try to do like a power pose. And I'd be like, you are strong, you are capable, you will survive, you will never give up. And I would just repeat that to myself over and over and over again. And then even sometimes like on the way to work or going in, I would just try to say those things to myself to reaffirm to myself, like, you can do this. You are strong. You are capable. And sometimes we need to be our own cheerleaders. We need to cheer ourselves on and pump ourselves up, because the negative things we say, we forget that we can combat those. We can combat those with positive things. But I just really was depressed, wouldn't be the word, but I just wasn't doing anything to move myself forward. I wasn't doing anything. I would go to work, go home, and then sit on the couch and watch TV the whole time. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
do anything for myself, for any type of self-care or self-love, which that's a huge part of confidence, right? And it's like we forget that confidence is something we're going to have to repeatedly, like it's a muscle. You have to keep flexing it. You have to keep working on your confidence. And if you're not, of course it's going to be down in the dumps. And so I think that the finance part propelled me forward, because it reminded me, okay, you just keep showing up. It doesn't have to change overnight. Like it's about being consistent and persistent and keep going. And once I got that result, it was like knocking over a domino. Like, it was a lot easier because then I started running marathons and started doing things that I didn't think I was capable of doing. But it was just a matter of knocking over that first domino, and then it made other stuff so much easier.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. I was having a conversation with someone tonight, and my husband and I just recently became the, I always say, I guess, the overseers of a church. And we were appointed there back in November. And I was terrified because I've been used to being the assistant and being someone that helped others out. But now it's us that are in the actual role of leader. And
Right.
so, it's like I always, I can assist you very well. I know what needs to be done. I know how to get it done. And I'm not a bad leader either, but I'd rather be the help. But now it's like we're the one, there's nobody above us except for our elder and our bishop, but they're not there watching over us. They're not micromanaging us. They have given us an opportunity to go in and lead other people. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm kind of scared and it's kind of terrifying. It's something new. And so I was talking to someone tonight and they go, you guys are rocking it out down there. You're doing an awesome job. And I go, you know what? We're not doing anything. God is doing it. We just keep showing up. And that's part of, I think that's 90% of it. Show up. If you show up, the rest of it will take place. And so a lot of times we don't get up to get out of the door, to get to where we're going, to be able to show up, or we don't show up 100%. And that's when we fall short of who we are. And so, would you like to talk to us about how you were able to, I know with the affirmations, because that's important, but even just being able to tell yourself those affirmations, what were you able to do to consistently speak those things to yourself and get up and walk out that door and do what needed to be done?
Um, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what it was, especially in the beginning. I mean, I am stubborn. I will tell you that. I am stubborn. That is one thing. Like I will keep beating my head against a wall, until I figure something out. So that's something for sure that has helped me is just being stubborn. Like I don't like to once I commit to doing something, I like to figure it out, and so I will keep trying. Like when I was a kid, I was my mom always tells the story and I remember it, but when I was riding a bike and I would fall off the bike all the time, like ridiculously. My legs were so stinking bruised. My mom's like, people are gonna think we're abusing you. And it's like I was just so stubborn. Like I was not gonna not figure it out. So for like a week straight, I just kept doing it, even though I kept falling. And that's kind of been a through line throughout my life is that I'm just so stinking stubborn that it'll be like a dog with a bone. Like I'm not going to give it up once I get my teeth in something. And so I think that that has really helped just my stubborn factor. It's not that anything has been any easier for me than for other people. It's just that I'm just going to keep going or fight through it.
Absolutely. Okay, so here we go. The $106,000 question. So you just fell into this magic equation that just worked it all out and it just happened overnight for you, right?
No, that would be nice though.
Absolutely. Tell people because they don't get it. It takes you a minute or a second to get into debt, and sometimes it can take a long time to get into debt, but it's going to take long time to get out of it too. So it's a process, and a lot of us don't know where to start or where to begin, and we get frustrated, we give up. So let us understand how you grew that confidence to realize that, you know what, this is a big chunk, but what do I do to dwindle that down? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I will say when I first found out that number, I had no idea that I was that far in debt. I knew that I was struggling to make payments or to pay my bills, and that things were getting tight, but I had no idea the actual number. So when I first wrote it all down and figured it out, and you know what? It was like nothing fancy. It was just like notebook, pen, paper, and just writing it all down. Where I owed the bills to, like the company, the address, the phone, all the contact information, the account number, just writing it all down and getting it all figured out. And that was the first thing. And that felt very heavy initially, looking at the number because it felt very intimidating. But then, you know what? I created a plan that I was just going to start paying off the smallest debt first. And that's what I did is I attacked that smallest debt. And I'll tell you, when I first started budgeting, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to pull my hair out. Like it was so hard for me. And maybe it goes back to insecurities from school. I'm horrible at math. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at math. This is going to be so hard. I can't create a budget. And I think I amplified how hard it was in my head. Um, which by the way is why today I created a color coded budget, which is more about colors than about numbers, just so people can get out of their head with that. But really, it was a process. And through it, I learned that, okay, I'm going to pay off this debt first, like the smallest debt first, and everything else, I'm only going to pay the minimum payment. And that's what I did. And then once that smallest debt was paid off, I'd go to the next smallest debt and keep paying the minimum payment on everything else. And I learned that I was paying off money pretty quickly and I was working a ton of overtime because I was like, let me just get this out of the way. Um, but I learned, okay, I can make mistakes and I still am not going to be perfect with my budget. It'd be perfect with everything, but I was still seeing great progress. And so that was very encouraging to me. So even when I would fail, even when I'd make mistakes, I would still see moving the needle forward. I think we often make a mistake and we think like, what am I going to do now? Like I got to give up or there's nowhere to go from here. But it's just about the tenacity to keep sticking with it, even when it sucks, even when it's hard. And then I think, it always helps to look at the future, like what you want, not to look at all the drudgery of what you're in that second, but to like keep imagining yourself on that vacation you want to go on or the retirement you want to have or the house you want to have. Like imagine the fun stuff as opposed to like the dreaded moment that you're in.
Yeah. And so once you start seeing that this is happening and the debt is getting going further and further away. And so you're not as close to it as you were. What did that do to you? How did that make you feel then?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that made me feel amazing. Um, initially I was like, I am not going to give up getting my hair done. I'm not, that was one thing that I was just not going to give up, or I wasn't going to give up some Starbucks. Like, not that I was going to Starbucks all the time, but I was like, I got to go like once a month or whatever,
Yeah. You got to
but
reward yourself.
yes, exactly. And I don't think that you need to deprive yourself, but it got to the point, like I was getting so excited. I was like, oh, I found a creamer that I liked and I just started having coffee at home or at work, as opposed to going out. But it was the results I was seeing that motivated me to get rid of that. I started dyeing my hair at home, just because it got me excited. Like, I was like, oh, this is possible. This is working. And so I chose to stop doing some of those things that I initially didn't want to give up. But that was because I was seeing results and seeing that it was working. So, I think definitely pick one or two things that you want to indulge on within reason, of course, and then, focus, buckle down on the other stuff. But you might be surprised that, eventually you might be okay getting rid of that stuff.
And, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think often we don't realize that half of the stuff we can do ourselves, and we're wasting money when we don't utilize our resources and we can do it ourselves, like doing your own hair. I've got 5 girls. They all can do hair. They all can do nails. You're not going to a salon. You don't need to. I can do hair. We can work that out. So that right there is something that we can cut down. And so if we start looking at things, now there are certain things that it's like, yeah, I can't cut down. I'm not an expert on that. I can't do that. But, even from going out to dinners or whatever, it's like certain things that you can learn that, hey, I can fix this at home and I'm saving a ton. And not only that, but now you realize that how you got into that debt. And it's like maybe not understanding that I'm just out here spending frivolously without even thinking about it. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm being more wise and I'm being more conscious of what's going out. And then when you look around, you actually have more what you
Right.
started
Yes.
with, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you have a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same, it's the name From Ordinary to Badass. And
Yep.
so did you start the podcast after you did the financial cleansing, or was it something that went hand in hand? Or like, what just made you realize that, hey, if I can help myself, I can help others?
Yeah. It was a little bit, it didn't hit me right away, if I'm being honest. It took me a minute. So after I paid off my debt, then my parents were in debt, and it really just freaked me out because they were coming upon retirement soon. And I knew they still had their mortgage to pay and they had credit card bills. So I was stressing out for them. And my brother had actually been like, well, why don't you become a financial coach? And I was like, oh, I don't know. So I did go through Dave Ramsey and become a certified financial coach. And yeah, so that was a game changer. Absolutely. And then here's the funny thing. I was doing this all because I was thinking I want support for my parents in case they can't pay for stuff in retirement. And I sat down with my mom. I helped her create a budget and create a plan. And unbeknownst to me, while I'm sitting here working, creating the business and trying to become certified as a financial coach, my parents paid off all their debt. And so it's like sometimes all you need is just one little step or just a little bit of help. And then it gives you the motivation, because it wasn't me that did it. It was absolutely her. Like, I sat down with her and showed her a couple things. But again, don't underestimate your power. Sometimes all you need is just one tiny little thing, and then it's totally going to propel you forward.
And Michael Jordan wasn't flying through the sky before anybody else was. And nobody else was flying before him. But now look at all these people that can dunk and that can get airtime that wasn't getting it before Michael Jordan. Somebody has to be able to show or lead the way that, hey, this can be done. And then somebody comes behind you and can make it even better. And then and so that it's all about laying a foundation. And so you said you weren't taught this at a young age. So those same people that sent you through school came behind you and learned something from you. See, we're all here for a reason. We don't even know it. Before we were even born, we don't even know the reason you were here, to get your parents financially stable. Because seriously, let's think about it. In our parents' day, they went to work and they were at home or whatever, but they didn't look at things the way we look at things now. And most women were left holding the bag if something happened with their husbands, because the husbands took care of all the finances, right? And so now it's not about not being able to lean on one another, but about that independence of understanding how to make this happen. And by you doing it, and you're a product of them, right? So I can only imagine that your mom is like, if you came for me, then I can do this too. Right? And so that's
Right.
beautiful because sometimes we miss the mark in thinking that we can't learn from our children or that we can't learn from someone younger than us or even someone older than us. Because a lot of times we feel like, well, I've been there before. Yeah, but sometimes that's not working. And sometimes new things, new challenges can persuade us to look at things in a different perspective. So that's beautiful that you were able to do that. And not only that, but then your brother, is he younger or older?
He's younger.
And see, he's younger. A millennial, I'm assuming, came up behind you and was like, hey, why not be a coach? Because we are in the information age where everybody is selling information. And that is where you are the expert and you can come and help other people. And so if you know it's proven to work for yourself, it definitely can work for others if they do what? What do they have to do though?
What do they have to do to
Yeah, what do
make
they
it
have
work or to pay
to
off
make it
debt?
work?
Or
To make it work, what do they have to do?
create a plan. Create a plan. Have a plan for yourself going forward. Like get it down on paper. I know I wanted to stick my head in the sand and not see it because it seemed too difficult, but it is actually a weight off your shoulders once you have a plan. So get it all down on paper, what you owe, who you owe it to, and create a plan going forward. Like just start paying off the smallest debt first. And you will be surprised at how quickly you'll gain traction and like you'll feel like a little swag, a little shrug in your shoulders, because you'll see some movement there.
Absolutely. And I always think about eating an elephant. Like, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One little bite-sized chunk at a time. And so, again, paying off that small, because numbers can overwhelm you. I did insurance for a long time. And whenever I would present a policy to someone, I would always break it down in smaller numbers. Because if you give them this big annual number for the policy, they're freaked out. But then when you break it down and they're like, oh, well, that's not bad at all. It's like, no, it's not because you're looking at it on a smaller scale. And
Yes.
sometimes we have to take those baby steps to lead up to bigger steps. And so I admire you for building up that confidence and for being tenacious and for not backing down. And sometimes being stubborn is what it takes. You just have to continue to hold on and not be willing to let go. So tell us now, how do you help women?
So I help women. I have a course, Badass Money School. And so I definitely help through that way. I help through my podcast so they can hear inspiring stories about other badass women. Sometimes I have men who are supportive of badass women, but mostly it's women as guests. But what we forget is that we see social media, we see the shining, we see the good, but we don't always see the bad or we don't see the struggle or the hardship. And so I like to bring that out in my podcast so you see the behind the scenes. You hear some of the struggles that they've went through, some of the obstacles that they've overcome to get to where they are today. Because then it reminds you like, oh, they did that? I can do that too. Because sometimes we need that. We don't just need to see everything shiny and perfect, but like to see the struggle or the hardship. And then that gives us a little bit of courage, which I think is another thing. It's like, as women, it's our job to lift each other up. And so help each other where we can, lift each other up. And that's what I love about the podcast and my community. It's like we're our own little girl gang and we bring each other along. And I think that that is how we're going to move forward in the world is with women helping women.
Absolutely. And it's important to be able to have other women that are supporting you and that are rooting you on and encouraging you. I know so many times a lot of people will look at things as far as they are taking something away from someone or someone's taking something away from them. If we're all poured into each other, we are growing. Think about that. A plant that doesn't get water is going to die. And so, if you
Right?
want growth, then you have to pour in to someone else. And I always feel like that. Whatever you give out, you're going to get back. And not necessarily where you pour it into, but it's going to come double time because I always believe in double for your trouble. So it's coming back double. So good or bad, you're going to get it back. So give the
Right.
good and encourage and help someone else along the way because I was always told what you do for others is what you're really doing for yourself. And so whatever you want, pray for other people and encourage them and help them to get where they want to go. And then along the way, you'll make it as well. And so not only what you were doing for yourself, was something that was monumental to help other women that are at home struggling, trying to make ends meet, maybe not educated enough, maybe is educated and have gotten into a bad financial situation because they're not good with numbers. I
Right.
mean, it happens. We or had a husband that died or anything, any situation, too much school debt can get you into a place that you might not thought you would have been at. And then you've got to figure out a way out. And so we need to tell these stories. We need to show up and be real and raw and authentic. And that's what I love about you. And I love your cover, this the way you're standing there and you got the cape on. It's like, in our minds, as
Thank
that
you.
little girl, we're all thinking we want to grow up and be Wonder Woman. And if only we could just like hit our wrist and make the power pop out. But we're real women. And that's what makes it badass. Because when you can come from nothing and pull yourself up and or regroup and start again, that's important. So I appreciate you telling your story, letting us see that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to doubt yourself. It's okay to question who you are and even your talents and your abilities, but you can't give up on them. And
Right.
so,
Absolutely.
what is one of the major things that you would like for our audience to know as far as where they are and where they're trying to get to?
Yeah, you can get there. You can get there. You are a badass today. I promise you, you are already a badass. You just might not recognize it, but it's not this 10-step process or this long journey to badassery. Really, it's a decision. All you have to do is own it. That's it. Like we think that it's so hard or we have to do so much to get there or to be a badass. No. You are a badass right now. You just have to own it.
Absolutely. And that's it. We have to own it. We own all kind of other stuff, right? We own material things that do nothing for us. We own negative vibes that we put into our own head. We own mental and physical abuse. We own all of this stuff
Yes.
that we can let go of and start owning the good stuff that's going to build us up and encourage us and incorporate us to do well so that others can see that and they'll do well as also. So, is there anything else you would like to tell us? Because before we jump off of here, I want you to tell everybody how to get a hold of you, how they can work with you, and we'll put some social media links on our website. But anything you would like to share or that you would like anyone to know that we maybe didn't cover?
And it was something that you just said that reminded me, you know what? You be a badass, you be the best version of yourself. And then it is so crazy how many other people start lighting up around you. Like you can make such a difference, and other people will be like, oh, she's doing that? That's cool. And it kind of gives them permission to do the thing that they wanted to do. And that's pretty darn exciting. So I absolutely love that.
Absolutely. And I think it was you. You encouraged me because I had someone on the other day because I think we were going back and forth and I was like, will you be on the show? And you're like, who are you? And then you were like, you watched one of the podcasts or something, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
And you said it was something that I had said when she said she was planning her death. And I was like, no, you thought you were planning your death, but you were planning your life. And a lot of times we don't plan at all, and the fact that this lady wrote out a death plan, she was precise to the letter of what she was
Yeah.
going to do. And then just because someone didn't want to go to something alone, she tagged along and sat through something until she was penetrated and heard something that resonated in her soul. And I'm glad that you were able to watch that and
Yes.
got that out of that, because when I said that, I was like, I like what I just said there. And then you solidified it when you came back and said, that's what sold you on coming on my podcast. And that's the thing. It's like we don't know who we're going to reach. We don't know who we're going to touch.
Yes.
We don't know what we're going to say. But I might have said something that I thought was fantastic and it went over everybody's head. And then something small like, don't give up. Somebody heard that and was like, you know what? And what you said was, you have to have a plan. If you want to live or die, plan it out. Because I tell you what, if you plan your death, you're probably going to live longer than that happens. Because if you got enough time to sit down and try to plan that out, something is going to come and set you on the right path. But have a plan
Yes.
for it. Have a plan. No matter what you do in life, write the vision, make it plain. And then what will happen? People will see it and they will run with it. And so
Yes.
we are so excited to see you run with what you're doing. And I know you're going to bless a lot of people out there by encouraging them and by just letting them know that they can be a badass in their own right. And it's not a bad thing. A lot of times we get caught up on words and we get caught up on things, and people might turn their nose up and think, well, I can't believe Tanika is a reverend and she is on there talking like this. No, what I'm doing is empowering somebody, because there's somebody that's not in a place right now where I'm at. And so I'm meeting them there. I'm meeting them where they are right now to let them
Right.
know, wherever you are in life, you don't have to stay there. If you don't like it, we can turn the situation around and you can move forward. So I applaud you for not being afraid to stand up and being that badass woman that you contribute yourself to being, because if you don't, nobody else will. So I applaud
Thank
you.
you.
So God
Thank
bless
you.
you in all your endeavors and everything you do. Now, tell us how
Yeah.
we can work with you and where you are on social media so we can follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram at Ordinary to Badass, the same as on Facebook, and there is a Facebook group. Would love to have you in there, Ordinary to Badass community. And then my website, Ordinary to Badass. I like to keep it consistent.
Absolutely. And I did a little thing where I have some of the people that were on my show, and I did like a little carousel on Instagram. I'm still learning stuff. And I put you on there, and you were the last one. You were before the last interview, and then you were the last picture on there. And I was excited because I'm like, you know what? We can get inspired off of something that we don't even know that we're going to get inspired off of. And that red it just stands out to me as far as, and I just see you standing there with your hands on your hips, because you said you would stand in the mirror and you put your hands on your hips and you were like, but now you're living that, right?
Yeah.
So always be that confident person. Don't doubt yourself and continue to thrive, and you will go far. So I thank you so much for being my guest tonight.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
No problem. Hang out with me. I'm gonna get us out of here, and then I will get us off. But don't leave me yet. So
Okay.
everyone, mindful intentions will nurture and drive your business. You have to be mindful. You have to have intentions. You have to nurture it, and then you have to get behind that wheel, and you have to drive because it's your business. So if you're out doing other things that have nothing to do with you, you're not minding your business. So get on track. Come back to reality. Get yourself together, and know you were created with a purpose, and all things are possible if you believe and just go for what you know. Now, go be great. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again real soon. Thank you.